For 27 long years, Lake Allister kept its silence, holding tight to a secret that haunted the edges of Harmony Creek. Beneath the tranquil surface, the water hid more than just reflections of the sky. It concealed a mystery that would shape the town's history. That secret was the unexplained disappearance of Daniel Sterling, a man whose absence left a void in the hearts of everyone who knew him. Daniel wasn't just another face in the crowd, he was a neighbor, a friend, and a fixture in the daily life of Harmony Creek. The idea that he could simply vanish without a trace was unthinkable. One ordinary morning Daniel was gone. His old pickup sat abandoned by the lake, keys dangling in the ignition, the driver's seat empty. There were no footprints, no signs of struggle, just a chilling silence that settled over the water. The entire town rallied to search for him. Volunteers combed the woods, boats scoured the lake, and flyers fluttered on every telephone pole. But as days turned to weeks, hope faded, and Daniel's story slipped into the realm of local legend, a ghost story whispered on foggy nights. Then, on July 10, 2025, everything changed. Two divers exploring the lake's murky depths stumbled upon the rusted frame of an old sedan. Inside, they made a grim discovery: the remains of Daniel Sterling, lost for nearly 3 decades. The shock that rippled through Harmony Creek wasn't just about finding Daniel, it was about the car itself, a vehicle everyone believed Daniel had sold months before he vanished. How could Daniel have ended up in a car he no longer owned? The discovery raised more questions than it answered, and suspicion began to swirl through the town once again. Why was Daniel in that car? Had he been forced there, or was it a desperate act? And who, if anyone, had helped cover up the truth for all these years? How did the car end up at the bottom of Lake Allister, hidden from sight for so long? The lake, once a place of peace, now seemed to hold only questions. The ghost story that had haunted Harmony Creek for years now had a body, and the old questions that once faded into silence roared back to life with new urgency. Investigators, both old and new, now faced a puzzle scattered across decades, a mystery pieced together from faded memories, lost evidence, and the silence of the lake. The lake had finally given up its secret, but, in doing so, it reopened wounds the town thought had long since healed. Grief and suspicion mingled as Harmony Creek confronted its past. Now the mystery was no longer just a legend or a cautionary tale, it was a crime demanding answers, and justice that had waited far too long. The story of Daniel Sterling, once a fading memory, was about to be rewritten, one clue at a time, as Harmony Creek searched for the truth beneath the surface. The day began like any other, sunny, calm, and peaceful. The gentle lapping of water against the shore, the distant call of birds, and the soft, golden light of dawn painted Lake Allister in a familiar, comforting glow. For the people of Harmony Creek, it was just another morning, the kind that promised nothing more than quiet routines and simple pleasures. Ben and Carter, two local divers and lifelong friends, set out to explore the lake's western cove. They had heard stories of the unusually clear water in that area, and curiosity drew them in. With their gear checked and spirits high, they slipped beneath the surface, eager to see what secrets the lake might reveal. 40 feet down in the cool, shadowy depths, they spotted the glint of metal, a car nearly swallowed by silt and time. The vehicle's outline was barely visible, camouflaged by years of sediment and algae, but unmistakably out of place in the tranquil underwater world. Circling the wreck, their flashlights cut through the murk. Inside, they saw what no one ever hopes to find: human remains, slumped in the driver's seat, preserved by the cold water and darkness. Shocked and shaken, Ben and Carter surfaced as quickly as they could, signaling frantically for help. Their discovery was about to change everything for the quiet lakeside town. Within the hour, the lakeside was transformed. Deputies, divers, and news crews swarmed the scene, their vehicles and equipment crowding the once peaceful shore. The air buzzed with urgency and speculation. Lake Allister, once a place for picnics, fishing, and laughter, was now cordoned off with police tape. The familiar docks and picnic tables became the backdrop for a growing investigation. A heavy crane groaned as it lifted the rusted sedan from the water, mud and weeds trailing from its battered frame. The car, a ghost from the past, emerged into the daylight for the first time in years, its secrets exposed for all to see. The townspeople gathered at the lakeshore, watching in disbelief. Whispers of old legends and unsolved mysteries rippled through the crowd as the reality of the discovery set in. The discovery shattered the lake's tranquility, sending shockwaves through the community and reigniting fears that had long lain dormant. For Harmony Creek, the past had come crashing into the present, blurring the line between memory and reality. The town's history, once whispered about in hushed tones, was now front and center. Investigators combed the lakeshore for clues, piecing together evidence and searching for answers to questions that had haunted the town for decades. The community braced itself, anxious and uncertain, wondering what truths would finally come to light, and what new mysteries might be uncovered. The silence that had hung over Lake Allister for so long was broken. The investigation was officially underway, and there was no turning back. The lake's secret, hidden for years beneath its calm surface, was finally out in the open, changing the town forever. The story was no longer just a whisper, it was the talk of Harmony Creek and the beginning of a new chapter in the town's history. On dry land, the investigation began. The car's registration, found sealed in the glove box, named Daniel Sterling. The cold case file was reopened after decades in storage. Daniel, a reliable worker, had vanished without a trace in 1998. His truck was found, but not him, until now. The sedan he was found in belonged to a neighbor, supposedly sold for cash before Daniel disappeared. Why was Daniel in that car? How did it end up in the lake? Theories of accident or suicide no longer fit. The discovery answered one question but raised many more. The truth had been hiding in plain sight. The case was no longer folklore. It was a fresh investigation. The mystery deepened, and the search for answers intensified. The story was far from over. For nearly 3 decades, Daniel's family lived in limbo. His sister Sarah kept his memory alive, hoping for answers as years passed. The not knowing was the hardest part, a constant ache at every family gathering. Harmony Creek felt the loss too. The case became a cautionary tale. Sterling's Point, where his truck was found, became a place of quiet sadness. The police file lingered, passed from detective to detective, always cold. Every few years, someone would revisit the case, but nothing new emerged. The town moved on, but the shadow remained. The mystery was a crack in the town's peaceful facade. The years dragged on, waiting for a breakthrough that never seemed to come. The silence was heavy, the questions unanswered, until the lake finally spoke. Daniel's disappearance cast a long shadow over Harmony Creek. Trust was shaken, suspicion and fear crept in. The case became a reference point for every unexplained event. For younger generations, it was a campfire legend, until the body was found. Suddenly the ghost story was real, the fear fresh. Old theories resurfaced and memories from 1998 were revived. The man who sold Daniel the car, the co-worker he argued with, all were back in the spotlight. The town was forced to confront its past. The shadow was no longer lingering, it was everywhere. The community was changed, forever marked by the tragedy. The search for truth had become urgent once more. With the body found, the cold case was hot again. Detective Miles Corbin, who remembered the original search, led the new investigation. He pored over old files looking for missed clues. The breakthrough came from the car, a partial fingerprint on the rearview mirror. It matched Marcus Thorne, a former resident who'd moved away after Daniel vanished. Thorne had worked at the same mill and was in debt at the time. He'd been a minor name in the original file. Now, he was a person of interest. Corbin tracked Thorne down, now living quietly in another state. When confronted, Thorne's reaction was telling. He seemed to know why they'd come. He agreed to talk at the precinct. The fingerprint had finally led to someone who might hold the key. The long silence was over. The investigation had a new direction. The past was demanding answers. In the interview room, Marcus Thorne's story began to unravel. The sterile walls, the harsh lighting, and the relentless ticking of the clock all seemed to close in on him, amplifying the pressure. Every question from the detectives chipped away at his composure, revealing cracks in the story he'd rehearsed for years. At first he denied everything, clinging to his innocence with desperate conviction, but the evidence was overwhelming, and the detectives' persistence left him visibly shaken. Each denial sounded less convincing than the last, as if even he no longer believed his own words. The car, the fingerprint, and new DNA technology all pointed to him. Advances in forensic science had made it nearly impossible to hide the truth. The smallest trace, a fingerprint smudged on a door handle, a strand of hair, became a silent witness, telling a story that Marcus could no longer control. Forensic genealogy linked DNA from Daniel's clothing to Thorne's distant cousin, unraveling a family connection that no one had suspected. the science reached back through generations, connecting the present to the past in ways that were both astonishing and inescapable. Confronted with the facts, Thorne broke down. The weight of years spent hiding the truth finally became too much to bear. Tears welled in his eyes as the reality of his actions crashed over him, and the facade he'd maintained for so long crumbled in an instant. He confessed, he and Daniel had planned to flip the sedan for profit, hoping for a quick payday. What started as a simple scheme between friends spiraled out of control, leading to consequences neither could have imagined. An argument over money turned physical by the lake. Tensions flared, and in a moment of anger, words gave way to shoves. The peaceful setting became the backdrop for a tragedy that would haunt Marcus for decades. Daniel fell, hit his head. It was, Thorne insisted, an accident. The sound of the impact echoed in Marcus's memory, a moment frozen in time that he could never escape. He replayed it over and over, searching for a way it could have ended differently. Panicked, Thorne put Daniel in the car and pushed it into the lake. Fear clouded his judgment, and in his desperation he tried to erase every trace of what had happened. The water swallowed the evidence, but not his guilt. He drove Daniel's truck to the other side to create a false trail, hoping to mislead investigators and buy himself time. Every mile he drove, the weight of his actions grew heavier, and the reality of what he'd done began to sink in. He'd lived with the guilt ever since, always fearing discovery. Every knock at the door, every unexpected phone call, sent a jolt of fear through him. The secret shaped his life, casting a shadow over every relationship and every quiet moment. The science provided the evidence, but it was Thorne's own memory that sealed his fate. In the end, it wasn't just the DNA or the fingerprints, it was the story he could no longer keep hidden, the truth he could no longer deny. The truth buried for decades had finally surfaced. Years of investigation, new technology, and the persistence of those seeking justice had brought it into the light. The confession brought clarity to the mystery. For the detectives, it was the culmination of tireless work and unwavering belief that the answers were out there, waiting to be found. The case was finally breaking open, a testament to the power of science, memory, and the relentless pursuit of truth. Thorne's confession completed the puzzle. It wasn't a cold-blooded murder, but a tragic accident and a desperate cover-up. 2 lives were destroyed that night, Daniel's lost, Thorne's haunted by guilt. Thorne was charged with manslaughter and improper disposal of a body. The legal process began, but the truth was finally known. For Harmony Creek, the resolution was bittersweet. The ghost story had an ending, but the sorrow lingered. The lake, once a place of beauty, was now marked by tragedy. The town could finally begin to heal. The questions that haunted a generation were answered. The shadow had lifted, but the memory would remain. The story of Daniel Sterling was finally complete. The silence had been broken for good. For Sarah Sterling, the truth brought closure, if not comfort. She could finally mourn her brother, no longer lost to mystery. The community began to heal, united by the truth and the lessons learned. The lake reclaimed its place, now with a new sense of respect. Legal proceedings against Thorne continued, but the main story was over. The case proved that no secret stays buried forever. Science and persistence had kept a promise to a family and a town. Daniel Sterling's story is a testament to hope and the pursuit of truth. There are more stories like this. Subscribe to follow them with us. We'll be here wherever the search for answers leads.